Anyway, hello, my name is Cameron, and I work here at Letta. And so I figured today we're just gonna kind of like chit chat. I'll give you like some general updates. We only have one like kind of big user facing change that people should be aware of. And then we have some like kind of like back end stuff that we've been doing that might be interesting to some people who do like more infrastructural stuff. Um, but yeah, so the first big thing, then we're going to make like a more public announcement about this. Let me see here. I'll pull up the link and put it inside of here. Okay. So we have like recently updated our support for Vercel's AI SDK from version 4 to version 5. Um, and version 5 brought a bunch of like changes with it. Well, let me back up and just like give you an overview of what that actually is. So the AI SDK is Vercel's approach to unify, make a standardized interface for various like inference providers, for especially for like user-facing stuff. So if you want to build like applications or websites or whatever, they have some kind of like a language model component. Vercel's AI SDK provides support for how to do that. And so you can talk to Letta agents using the AI SDK. Previously, we only supported version 4, but it has since been updated to version 5. Version 5 brought a bunch of updates. A lot of them were like quality of life, such as like type safety. But now there's a there's a significantly higher amount of control that you can give to Letta's like inference side when you send us a message, because they allow you to like control provider options inside of it. So if you're a person who does any like front end work with the AI SDK, this is a good thing to go play with. So we'll be updating some examples and things like that, so you can start working with it. And then I'll show you the link to our code here. Let's see. Let me go pull that up. Yeah, okay. Vercel AI SDK provider. Okay, so if you want to go mess with that, there is the code inside of that. This should work already, and then we're going to be updating the docs on the Vercel website very shortly, so if it's not already done. So that's kind of like the big user-facing changes, where we now have just like a more consistent, coherent interface, so you can build the exact same technical infrastructure that you would for any language model provider in whatever your like front-end application is, and then just hot swap it with whatever inference engine you want. So that part has been updated. And then, let's see. And then the kind of like big changes, last week was like kind of an interesting mad dash. We've been making some architectural revisions to how Letta Cloud may work at scale. So one of those things was we migrated like kind of our execution engine for agent loops to something called Temporal. And Temporal makes it much, much easier to like reschedule things in the event of errors. So the reason that we did this was we had a bunch of like kind of asynchronous code that we were running underneath the hood that was like a little clunky as far as I understand, and kind of like difficult to debug. So if you've ever received that, like, you know, a server error has occurred, please contact support, red bar just above the text message, just above the input box when you send a message, you know, your agent like kind of ghosts you. We call that a SAD. And the hope is that by switching to Temporal underneath the hood, we can actually give you a ton of visibility about exactly what went wrong. And that also allows us to kind of fix things a lot easier. So that is currently not available to anyone except for us and some of our enterprise customers. So we're still testing that and just like seeing if it works and like evaluating whether or not we can scale it out and stuff like that. So that's on the reliability on the Letta Cloud side. So this is, we're not super clear on how this is going to affect the open source self-hosted stuff, because Temporal is pretty complicated to maintain, and it's very difficult to stand up on your side if you're self-hosted. Like we have somebody like full-time who works on this like integration between the two and maintaining the infrastructure to like run temporal underneath the hood. So if you are self-hosted, I doubt that you are likely to experience any changes as a result of temporal, at least for now. But that's an active discussion as we like figure out, whether or not temporal works for us and how it works and like kind of our learnings as we go along. So we may actually write a case study about it because it was like, it was pretty gnarly. The engineering team did some really good work. And then we have, the other thing was we migrated our backend database to Planet Scale, if you know them. So previously, I think we were just using, I think we might have been self-hosted or like using our own database, but we migrated to somebody managed. So there was a big migration on sometime at the end of last week. That was a big move. So we're doing just like pretty substantial architectural revisions to reduce latency and improve cloud performance such that it's like just an extremely good experience to run a cloud. So few of those changes will impact anybody who's self-hosted. Those are kind of like the big user-facing stuff, and then cloud infrastructure type things. And I think those are the primary things I want to go over that are like, that we mostly covered up. Obviously, there's like always like UI changes and bug fixes and things like that are going along. And so everybody who like reports stuff and support, thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate it. So they're being entered into our ticket system, and we're going to kind of like filter through more of those as we go along. So yeah, thank you very much for all the bug reports, everybody. I'm trying to keep up, so I hope nobody's too mad at how slow I am. Okay, so I think I'd open up to questions and see if anybody has stuff they want to share, or what they're working on, or anything they want to know the status of. So you can ask in the chat, or you can like raise your hand and ask to speak on stage, and then I can give you the microphone. As far as the proxy compatible endpoint is concerned, I don't think that's currently a high priority for us. But I know that Will Sargent has a proxy that I think works. I haven't tried it, but I know that it's like probably the closest thing that we have. As far as us having first-party support for an OpenAI compatible proxy, I think we should. I think we should, but I don't know where it is on the roadmap. If you're in the front end side, if you're in like Vercel world, then it's like doable. But like I know that like there's definitely a split between like the TypeScript people use like the AI SDK. Everybody on the Python side ends up using the OpenAI compatible proxy. So I do think it's an important thing for us to do, and I can try and like have a broader discussion about it with the team, because I do think it's an important feature. Because that was the first thing that I assumed when I started working here. I was like, how do I just like talk to my agents with the endpoint, right? Because it's like a very natural assumption. So I'll try and have a broader conversation about it today. Dustin has a question about support for the responses API. So I actually don't know this. I think there's like a PR sitting somewhere. I don't know if it's been merged in yet. All right, so it has been merged, but I believe you have to have a specific agent type, and it may be Letta agent v1. So let me actually check that. I'm going to pull up let's see if it actually made it into our architecture guide. Type. There it is, agent type. Yeah, I don't know how easy it is for us to access right now, but but I think it seems like it is available. So you should, if you know, this will affect basically the GPT-5 models because they've been terrible for a while because we weren't like handling reasoning state correctly. So it should work for particular architecture. So I'll make a note to send more information out about that. So that people have it accessible. But very, very good question. Thank you for reminding me about that, Dustin. Streaming support for Olama. I actually don't know. I think for VLLM, my sense is for VLLM it should probably work. But I haven't tried it. Token streaming for Olama. I'll have to check in on that one. And VLLM. In general, I wish just in general, like I don't know how much we actually tested VLLM, but it's like the best inference provider. Like I know that people are like, most people who are like kind of hobbyists use Olama and LM Studio and stuff, but like if you do anything like at kind of even moderate scale, like VLLM is just awesome. Although I think XAI uses SGLang, which surprised me. And I know that Noose Research also uses SGLang. But my general preference is for VLLM. So, okay, this tiny little conference room is opened up, so I'm going to move and sit in there. Okay, hold on. All right, moving my stuff. All right. Okay. These are all great questions. Anyone have other questions they want to bring up? These are all excellent. Thank you for keeping me honest and reminding me what we do. Like, this is the thing I've noticed about working at Letta is like so much stuff just like happens and I don't notice. Like there's, I've never, ever, ever had a problem working somewhere where there is simply too much to communicate. So this stuff is all very useful for reminding me to ask people at the company what the hell is happening. And then some people who are like the winners of the hackathon, you guys should be receiving swag relatively soon. And I may start doing like giveaways and stuff because we finally got all of our swag. So we have shirts. Actually, hold on, check out the back of this shirt because it's extremely cool. I don't know if that works. Boom. So that's cool. And then we have a bunch of like glasses and bottles and cups and some hats, stuff like that. So, so yeah, I can send some people stuff. All right. Anyone else have any like projects they want to share or anything that they're working on that they're excited about? Oh, yeah, hit me with the one last question. Yes, regarding community support. Let's see what else here do I have. If someone wants to lend a hand, what are tasks worth focusing on? This is a good question. I know that we have, so there's one thing that's been on our like to-do list that we haven't gotten like really nailed down is setting up a roadmap, because a lot of our development happens kind of internally. So, because we like, we kind of move at this like breakneck pace and just kind of like change a bunch of stuff. But I think we don't have as good of a handle. Yeah, mood. I don't think we have as good a handle on how to get community, community support, like easier to be involved with, right? So we have like a contributing guide with it, like I think it's like moderately helpful, but I don't think we have a good way of saying, like, if you want to add this, please go ahead and try. And like, we can try and support you as best as we can, and then flag that feature as like community supported and was like possibly not something that we want to like, that we can't support or maintain on our side due to like limited resources. I think Sarah and Charles and I and some of the other people need to sit down and like figure out, one, what features are available, how we can get people like contributing like more easily, and then two, providing a roadmap of like actual features and stuff that we want to see within like, you know, like the first half of 2026, or just like, you know, the general feature support that we need to manage better. So I want to see if I can kind of pin people down. But yeah, open source support is like, we started from open source. You know, MemGPT was like a very, very, very actively developed community project. And, you know, basically all of Letta is built on that community effort. And, you know, there's been a lot of like complicated growing pains as like, you know, trying to figure out like this like proprietary component with like Letta Cloud and how to do CI/CD and where does that live in like our monorepo, or is it like in the core side, and you know, just kind of like maintaining essentially different feature sets, or partially different feature sets across the proprietary version and the open source version, Letta Core. And so I think because we're still trying to figure out exactly how that functions internally for us, it's been like slower. It's been like a harder thing for us to kind of figure out exactly where to, you know, like how to provide very precise focus to open source contributors who want to help. And so that's like definitely on like a priority on my side, is like figuring out how to like actually get people to like help out and play around, because it's really fun to build on Letta. So yeah, I will figure that out and try and pin the people down about that. Let me make a note. And then Langton had a question about OSS and doing a release soon. So part of this is that we're trying to do a V1 release, and V1 is going to be breaking. So we're trying to accumulate changes so that we want to get all of the breaking changes in all at once. I can see if we can cut a release now, but we may actually switch to a V1 release candidate instead. So people should beware. We're going to start like putting together a migration guide and things like that. Most of your simple use cases, like, you know, sending messages and things like that, won't change, but there will be a lot of, you know, MISC endpoint changes, like, you know, sources have been changed to folders and all this kind of stuff. So we're gonna like kind of prune and like tidy everything up so that when V1 releases, it will be much cleaner. It wasn't already mentioned. I think the V1 SDK like breaking stuff, like we're gonna need to start ramping up just like general communication about what's changing, and quite a few things are changing. So I just need to like actually start writing them down and like putting them like in a forum post or something that's just like, you know, here is exactly what's happening. Yeah, we'll work on that and kind of get it out to everybody. But I'll figure out if we can cut a release now, because there have been like changes and fixes and, you know, all sorts of things like that. Can we cut OSS release? Okay, I took note. Thank you, Plankton. Yes, there is merch now. I am wearing merch. I may start doing some giveaways, so I'll see if I can add like a little. We can do like a little contest and like send some shirts to people or whatever, because they're nice, they're cool. We have some hats. I'm not like the biggest fan of the hats, but we'll send those out. We have glasses and drinkwares, and you know, I like the shirts especially. So I've been wearing those a lot. Yeah, there is merch. Okay, and then Jason had a question about how to get up to speed for how to do the rules for memory block swapping. Um, so for memory block swapping, it depends on whether you want to do that agentically, such as allowing your agent to have tools for dynamic memory management. If that is the case, that is very difficult to do because of the way that our agent loop works currently. So the way that the agent loop works is that you pass in an agent state into the tool call. And that is a pickled version of the agent. It's like a canned inside of the actual server. And what happens is if you use the API endpoint to go try and change which blocks are available, you may have a disjoint between what is inside of the pickled agent state and the version of the thing that you've modified using the endpoint. And so this agent state has really screwed us on being able to do agentically, like dynamic agentic memory. It is possible in some cases, particularly if you're detaching. If you're adding blocks, it's a little clunkier. You may run into weird errors. This stuff is going to be overhauled. The idea is that essentially we're just going to give you a Letta client inside, and then we're going to give you the agent ID, because those are really the only two things. And then you would just directly go through the client API instead. And that would allow, like, once that happens, agentic, like, dynamic memory management is just, like, easy. I think that's part of, like, ongoing changes to how the agent loop functions, but I need to check in on, like, just the general, like, what's happening with that. Check in on agent state. Okay. Let's see. And then Jason also had a follow-up question there, which is like, I'm interested in this for the coding application, that, and also figuring out how to take advantage of the archival memory to ingest large chunks of code and documentation. So ingesting code and stuff is interesting because archival memory is, in my view, it's not particularly easy to modify right now. And modifying, like, you know, the thing that you want to be able to do with archival memory is identify it by path, essentially. You can do this. Like, you know, one thing you can do is, because we've added tags, you can insert archival memories with tags that are like, you know, the name of the repo. So for example, Letta/Letta, use that as the tag for that archival memory, and then put the path inside of like the very top of the archival memory, so you can retrieve it using full text search. So that would be my guess if you wanted to do like kind of like naive management of code inside of archival memory. It's like maybe a little clunky. I don't know of people who've like seriously tried it yet. I know of people who tried to use file system for it. And file system like won't work super well if you have like, you know, more than 100 files or more than 100 like, you know, pieces of documentation and code. Because like our, you know, file system was intended to like mimic this like Claude code, like you have a handful of files type structure. You know, I think it's possible with archival memory. It's going to be like a little hacky, but it's very doable. So let me see if I can like example of code with archival. Okay, that is a good idea though. Thank you. Let's see. Let's see here. There's a CLI version of a group chat thing. Yes, you should send me that. Question. Bowen asked about whether or not it's possible to use custom inference providers like OpenRouter or Hugging Face with Letta Cloud. Very soon. So one of the things is that we're switching over to the fourth version of the agent loop is that we will no longer require tool calls. So when it is that because OpenRouter is terrible, they will just often just like send you, like, we can't enforce tool calling on the side of OpenRouter because OpenRouter is like has abysmal support for tool calling. Like it's meant, like OpenRouter is for like it's not for serious people. It's for like people who want something that's like cheap and like a bunch of models. And so basically, we're going to remove that requirement. And if OpenRouter sends you, from our perspective, what is essentially garbage, we'll put it in an assistant message so it's just like a normal chat thing. And that requires some modifications to the agent loop. So on Letta Cloud, it will be entirely possible for you to start using Grok and Cerebras and OpenRouter and all of those like providers who just like don't do tool calling correctly. So if you're running into this problem, like all these people try OpenRouter, they're like, how do I get OpenRouter to work? And we're like, you can't, because it's a bad service. Like OpenRouter is not a good service. It's a toy. And that's why we haven't supported it, is because it more or less doesn't function with Letta, because it's not meant for serious agentic workflows. It's meant for play. But it will be broadly available if you don't mind the fact that it just like doesn't care about tool rules or like tool calling or anything like that. Oh, that's interesting with Rue, but not Letta. I'm curious. Do you always get it to work with Rue? That's very interesting. Oh, it doesn't rely on tool calling. Okay, that's probably why. Because Letta is only tool calling. When you go through a Letta agent, it's like you have to call a tool. Like if your agent is like, certainly, I'm just going to go ahead and write this thing for you, and then it does tool call, you're like, you did it wrong, buddy. Like, stop. Like, if you didn't call a tool immediately, you're done. It's over. But we will relax that. So it will be possible to use all of these miscellaneous providers. So don't worry about that. It will be available. People can use OpenRouter support, and we will display a little warning triangle that says, hey, we noticed that you're using OpenRouter. Just be aware. This is not a good service, and you may have like serious deteriorations in performance. But yeah, the OpenRouter stuff, I think we just need to like more broadly communicate, because it's, everybody tries OpenRouter and it doesn't work, and we just can be clearer about that. But thank you for asking. Let's see. Yeah, Plankton mentioned the pinned issue for the V1 release, and it is stale. So we have to sit down and do it, like now, or at least very soon. Yeah, Hermes 4, I'm talking to Technium at News Research tomorrow. So I'll see if we can talk about it, because, Hermes 4 does tool calling fairly well. And their API supports some stuff, so we may be able to like talk to them about like how to run like Hermes directly through the News Research endpoint instead, because I think that wouldn't be too hard. So let's see, deep infra. I don't know too much about it. I'm surprised that there's not only direct from News. Like I would have suspected that like Cerebras or whoever. That's weird. Let me talk to them about that. Can you like message me some stuff about like whatever you noticed about the endpoint? Because I'll bring it up with Ryan or Technium tomorrow and see if I can talk about it a little more. Jason asked about the best offline and local models to use for Letta nowadays. So this varies depending on your use case. I think most people anecdotally prefer Qwen 3. We do a lot of experiments with Qwen 3 locally, and Qwen 3 is just like, it's a solid model. It does tool calling extremely well. Like Alibaba just makes great models. So for most use cases, I would just recommend Qwen 3. GPT OSS is not bad as far as tool calling is concerned. OpenAI uses a lot of tool calling, so like GPT OSS is like fine. I haven't heard a lot of people wowed with it, but it tends to do tool calling, memory operations, things like that passively. I find it to be a little boring, but that's a lot of OpenAI models are a little boring. Um, yeah, unsurprising that Quen is magic. Like Quen is an incredible model. They do amazing stuff. So I'm very very happy that like people use it and that it's like that it works for them. And then let's see what else. People still use Mistral Small. That's a common one that we see. I personally don't care for Mistral. I've never been like wowed by it. But I would say those are the big model families that people tend to use. Some people use Gemma. I've heard terrible things about Gemma. So like Gemma, I don't know what the hell's going on with Gemma, but it doesn't seem to like the tool calling structure that we use. I think I was talking to somebody yesterday who was like trying to run like a 1.7B Gemma model with like this super heavy like 4-bit quant or whatever the hell, and it just like completely fell apart. And I was like, yeah, like Gemma's not that good already, and like if you lobotomize it like that, like it's just not gonna work. Yeah, I get this kind of stuff a lot. But I want to start slowly wrapping up. So if there's like other questions, I want to like get one or two more in and see what people have. Yeah, anything that's designed for tool calling or like kind of agentic workflows is good. So like that's why the GPT OSS stuff is good, because OpenAI is very fixated on like, OpenAI, Anthropic. They understand that like chatbots are not the thing anymore. Like they won't be the thing. The thing is like actually agents and things that interact very seamlessly between tools and talking. And so anything that either of them puts out. Same thing with Quen. Quen understands, like Alibaba understands the future is like agentic kind of tool calling style agents. We'll start seeing more of those providers out. I think Mistral is still working on it. I think they're like a little behind on the tool calling front. Google Gemini, I don't know why it is that the smaller models, like the OSS models, don't really work that well for tool calling, given that Gemini is awesome at tool calling. Yeah, those are the general takes on like what works and what doesn't for offline and local. Yeah, that's a good question. I should write something up about that and just like stick it on the forum with like general recommendations, because it's like, I get that question like intermittently. Okay, gotcha. We should also, I don't know if we put open source stuff like that on the our leaderboard, but we have the leaderboard. All right, where did we put that? Yeah, we have some stuff inside of the leaderboard, but it's like, yeah, Quen 3 is on there. Quen 3 does reasonably good. We have to update the leaderboard. We have it. I think we have the code for pushing that stuff out, but it needs to be updated because like GPT-5 is missing, which is a big one. And I think we have the infrastructure to run it, but we either have run it and haven't put it up, or it just needs to be run and put up. So we expect the leaderboard to be updated relatively soon. Okay. All right. I have time for maybe one more question if people have them. Otherwise, I'm going to jump off and then start badgering everybody. I think I've got like 10 bullet points or something in here I'm going to follow up on. So I'll talk to everybody about stuff, and then I'll try and post an update in general. Are we thinking of running Kimi K2? I think I remember seeing Kevin, who's like our lead researcher, run something on K2. I don't know about GLM or Minimax. K2 I would expect to see. And Opus is not there either, which is odd. That may just be because of cost. and also timing. Yeah, we have like stuff that we need to update, but let me follow up on that. Yeah, I would throw the price graph. It's just like $10 or whatever. Opus is so expensive. But okay, I'm gonna call it there for the day. People hop in on like general or whatever. We've got questions. $75 per million tokens. Jesus. Okay, Anthropic. I understand you think you've got good models, and they do. I'm not gonna pay that much. Yeah, that's terrible. That's insane. Gross. I would love to be Anthropic right now. But thank you everybody very much for attending, and thanks for like questions and concerns and comments. It's super helpful to have everybody like kind of chime in, and as per usual, appreciate you making like the Discord actually a very fun place to be on. So and thanks for sharing what you're working on. It's always great. So I'll talk to everybody next week at the same time, and have a lovely day.